the Bay Area Book Festival's virtual festival. I'm Joanne Marple, a local writer and school librarian, and I'm very excited today to be talking with Ellen O of We Need Diverse Books and Kelly Starling Lyons of the Brown Bookshelf. Ellen O is a former adjunct college instructor and a lawyer with an insatiable curiosity for ancient Asian history. She loves martial art films, K-pop, K-dramas, cooking shows, and is a rabid fan of The Last Airbender and the Legend of Korra series. Ellen is the co-founder of We Need Diverse Books, which we know as WNDB, a non-profit organization dedicated to increasing diversity in children's literature. Originally from New York City, Ellen lives in Potomac, Maryland with her husband and 3 children and has yet to satisfy her quest for a decent bagel, which kind of surprises me from New York City, but there you go. Her books include Finding Junie Kim, The Dragon Egg Princess, and the Spirit Hunter series. Kelly Starling Lyons is a founder member of the Brown Bookshelf, a teaching artist and an award-winning children's book author. And her mission is to center Black heroes, celebrate family, friendship, and heritage, and show all kids the storyteller they hold inside. Her books include Caldecott Honor winner Going Down Home with Daddy, Giesel Honor Easy Reader Ty's Travels Zip Zoom, acclaimed picture books Sing a Song, How Lift Every Voice and Sing Inspired Generations, Tiara's Hat Parade, Dream Builder, the story of architect Philip Freeland, and the Jada Jones chapter book series. Lyons is the 2021 Piedmont Laureate for the Triangle area of North Carolina. And throughout her year-long tenure, she will build bridges to connect people through children's literature. So let's launch into my first question, which is for Ellen. Ellen, how did We Need Diverse Books first form? And for listeners and watchers who aren't as familiar with the organization, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. First of all, I want to say, hey, Kelly, last time I saw you, I think we were in Texas. So it's so interesting to be on a Zoom, right?
Great to see you. Yes.
Always great to see Kelly. All right. So WNDB started because, well, actually, let me go back a little bit. In 2012, the Cooperative Children's Book Center released their statistics on diversity in children's books. And it showed that out of 3,600 books published that year in Kidlit, only 7% were about a character of color, children of color. And there was this widely shared info pictographic, I think, by Tina Kugler, and it really kind of highlighted how big that disparity was. And a lot of people were kind of shocked by that, but nothing really changed. So in 2014, we started to have a conversation about it, just as BookCon was making announcements of their children's book panels that were pretty much all white authors. So a group of us just got together. We started a hashtag, and then we became a nonprofit because a hashtag is only as good as when it goes viral, right? You have to actually do something about it. So we wanted to create programmings to address the issue of why there was so little diversity in children's literature. And what we've done is we've provided grants and mentorships and free books to schools across the country. Many of our grant winners have gone on to become award-winning published authors themselves. In fact, you guys might know our first grant winner, Angie Thomas, of the author of The Hate You Give. So we've been slowly making a dent, trying to change things, working with the Brown Bookshelf. That's what we do, collaborate.
Oh, fabulous, fabulous. And I've been following We Need Diverse Books right from the get-go. And I think around 2015, probably year 2, Miranda asked me to write a blog series. So I wrote several posts for that. And it was just my pleasure to contribute a tiny bit. And I'm a great, great fan. So thank you for that, Ellen. Kelly, can you tell us a little bit about the Brown Bookshelf and its mission? Also, just as wonderful an organization.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. The Brown Bookshelf was created about 14 years ago, and it was the brainchild of Varian Johnson and Paula Chase Hyman, who were young adult authors, and kept getting asked about where to find Black children's books. And it seemed like despite this long, rich history, people just didn't have the knowledge of who was creating and the depth and the breadth of what was actually out there. And they invited me and illustrator Dawn Tate and another author, Carla Surratt, and we were the initial team that started the Brown Bookshelf. And over the years, we have, grown, and we're now a 9-person family that we're all working children's book creators. And our mission is to raise awareness of Black children's book authors and illustrators. Our signature campaign is 28 Days Later. So every year, in February, Black History Month, we shine a light on a different Black author or illustrator. They're often self-authored posts, which talks about their journey, their struggle, their latest book. It might recommend other authors to look into. And so we have this really vast archive of all these people who we have celebrated. So when people ask the question, where are the Black children's book creators? We have, the answer for you. So, and then that's just one slice of what we do. We also have Generations Book Club, which we started this summer, which is a way to help to recommend books on a monthly basis. And we're also hoping to boost sales. We started off really as raising awareness, but we've come to understand that in order to show publishers that our books have staying power and they're in demand, it's really important to add in that initiative of rallying people to purchase and showing the power of the dollar and the way that purchases with intention can create change. Our most recent 2 projects, one is with We Need Diverse Books, which we're really happy about partnering with, which is going to be a really cool marketing program that we hope is going to help empower people to be able to, get their books recognized and boost them in a way that they haven't been in the past, and be able to advocate for themselves with their publishers, give them tools for success. And our other program is called Amplify Black Stories, and that is with Highlights, the Highlights Foundation. It's a really robust, almost year-long program where we are going to have a cohort of 20 Black storytellers and a cohort of publishing professionals who are going to be learning in these parallel tracks, and some of them will cross over about the history of Black children's literature, and on the publishing side, how they can be better allies and how they can push our books to be more centered, and how they can really show the appreciation and help us reach our market. And on the storyteller side, helping them be able to connect with educators and librarians and learn all about rights and permissions to take their work to the next level. So I'm just, really happy and blessed to be part of the Brown Bookshelf, and proud of the work that we do.
Wow, I didn't know about, is this a newish initiative with the Highlights? Is that something?
Yes, yeah, we just announced it in February.
Oh,
yeah, and we'll be we're in the process of choosing the storytellers. We got lots of applications. And the program I think the first session is happening March 31st with the publishers.
Oh, that's terrific. And actually, just talking to you both is making me think that on my own school website, I need to be putting links to both these organizations. Obviously, diversity is really important to my school library. And, any way we can spread the word, we need to, right? Okay, back to Ellen. Could you give us your definition of diversity, Ellen, please?
I'll give you We Need Diverse Books definition of diversity. We say we recognize all diverse experiences, including but not limited to LGBTQ+, Native, people of color, gender, diversity, people with disabilities, and ethnic, cultural, and religious minorities.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I just read the definition.
No, and within that, is there any group that is really underrepresented more than any others? I'm just thinking, say, non-neurotypical, or we always see a lot more books for those sort of protagonists, or are all those groups really still very underrepresented, and we just need tons more for them all?
I think that we still need a lot more representation across the board. But if you were to ask me who probably has the least representation and the least positive representation, I would say it's Native authors.
Okay. Wow. Thank you for qualifying that as well. That's that's great. Okay, let's throw out a question for both of you. How do you think the whole equity inclusion thing has evolved in children's book publishing since you started writing? And I know it's probably a decade or two for both of you that you've been involved in this. And how have things changed for you, both personally as an author of colour, during your careers? Let's start with Kelly.
So I've been a published author now for about 16 years, and I have seen lots of changes over the years, and some things have stayed the same. When I'm thinking about inclusion and diversity, like I talked about the founding of the Brown Bookshelf, there just was this real lack of understanding about how many people were really creating the books and had created them for generations. But there just really wasn't a connection between the work that had been done, the work that was being done, and being able to get that into the hands of parents and librarians and teachers. And part of that was, a lack of understanding by the publishers about how to market our work. Also not seeing as many books being taken on by the publishing company. And, it's kind of cyclical. There'll be a kind of a push that happens for a while to get more books by, in our case, Black children's book creators. And then it'll kind of wane a little while, and then it'll come back. Right now, it's on the upswing, kind of as a result of the racial reckoning that has happened in this nation. That as we talk about and we look to all of the activism that is really forcing us to have these conversations about race and about who is being centered and about who has representation and who doesn't. Some publishers have moved to find ways to begin to deal with that and help with that. But then at the same time, we're still fighting the same battle. The Cooperative Children's Book Center has statistics every year, which are great, which show the number of books by and about kids of color, but by and about authors of color that are about kids of color. And every year, there's 2 times as many books that are about Black children that are by white authors than that are by Black authors. And that's a problem that just continues, and we're not sure why. So, the fact that even in this time when people are having more understanding and they're having conversations, and that is not changing that element of the issue, that's troubling. We are seeing more initiatives that are being created. We are seeing more debut authors that are able to break in, which is great. My personal mission is to make sure that we don't overlook the midlist authors that have been putting in the work for a long, long time. And sometimes you can get, somebody in, but if you don't invest in their success through marketing and through nurturing their career, and you just keep bringing in somebody new all the time, that's not, really helping these authors to have staying power and be able to be a real part of our community and, seen as part of the literary legacy. So we've made some strides. We're seeing some changes. Some good things are happening, but there's still a lot more work to do.
Amen, amen. Ellen, how would you like to add to what Kelly's just said?
Well, I agree with everything she said. Absolutely. I mean, she just kind of like nailed it on the head. The things that I would like to add, though, is that I feel like we change things bit by bit. So it's like we take, it's like a chiseling process. We chisel away at things. So one of the things I'm most proud of in terms of what has changed is that the fact that we've destroyed that myth about books by writers of color not selling. I mean, that was a myth for a very long time. They, in fact, it was so bad. There was a book that was about a Black character that they whitewashed the book. It was, I think it was Liar by Justine Lavelassier. They put a white girl on the cover of that book because they were so sure it would not sell with a Black girl. And so this myth, this marketing myth about, Black books don't sell, Asian books don't sell. You know what destroyed it? All of these great books that came out and just sat on the best-selling list. You've got Angie Thomas and Jason Reynolds, and you've got, Jacqueline Woodson, and Nicola Yoon and Nick Stone. Oh my gosh. Just see those books that sit on the New York Times best-selling list and show that there is a huge market for them, that kids want to read them. That is a big change. And hopefully that's a sustainable one, which I think it is because, publishing is a business and it's always going to come down to dollars. And when The Hate U Give sits on the New York Times bestsellers list for 3 years straight?
Yeah.
It says something. Yeah. But also, some nice changes that happened too, where it's like there are now imprints for diverse authors, like Hartram for Native authors, Kakila Salam Reads, Kwame Alexander's imprint, Diversify, and Chris Meyer's imprint. So that is a wonderful change to see too. And I really hope that they do well. So for me, I do see positives, but I think Kelly's absolutely right. We can't forget how much more still has to be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very excited about the imprints too. And just throwing out another quick question to both of you. Have you worked with editors who are people of color yourselves? Yes, both of you?
Yes, I have.
Great, that's great to know. I'm excited about that too then. Kelly, how conscious were you of not being represented in the books you were reading as a child? And how much do you think that maybe played into you becoming an author?
Yeah, I was an avid reader. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I remember my mom taking us to the Carnegie Library, and we'd come home with stacks of books. We had books in pretty much every room of our house. We were a big reading family. And I loved books about everything. I loved fantasy a lot when I was younger, dragon stories and sorcerers and superheroes. And I love science. So I'd read books about astronauts and rocks and folktales and fairy tales. But it wasn't until I was in third grade that we had a book club come to our school. And as I flipped through the pages of the flyer, I saw a kind of book I hadn't seen before. And the book I saw was Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. And that was my first time ever seeing a Black girl on the cover of a children's book. And I was in third grade, and it was not part of the curriculum. It was something that I happened to see in this book club flyer. I was a little young to really understand what that meant, but I know that immediately seeing that picture, I felt that I was being seen, that my story mattered and my family mattered and my history was important. And though it wasn't conscious, I feel like it did plant the seed in me that later bloomed into my becoming a children's book author. I feel, so happy that now we have organizations like the African American Children's Book Project. That's a really great one for people to look up. It's in Philadelphia, founded by Vanessa Lois Gambadi, where she has this African American Children's Book Fair every year that features, sometimes a couple dozen Black children's book authors. And they have thousands of kids that are coming to get to meet them and to see not just themselves on a book, but to meet the creators. To understand there's an organization called 100 Black Men, and their motto is what they see is what they'll be. And so to see the Black authors and illustrators and to know that they can tell their own story and there's power in that. So I feel that, kids today are through, some of the actions and some of the activism and the change that is happening, I hope are, even more able than I was as a kid to really understand the impact of having a book with a character who looks like you, written by someone who, could be part of your family.
Yeah. Okay, Ellen, what was the first book where you felt you saw yourself or your family or your culture represented, and how much did that impact you at the time?
So basically, the first book I saw an Asian character was actually the Five Chinese Brothers. And I was probably in first grade or second grade. And I just remember being very uncomfortable about the book. And later on being very upset because it was just the classic stereotypes of Asian people. And I had to deal with it. And then in art class, the boy next to me decided that I was the wrong color for a Chinaman and began to paint my arm mustard yellow. So when you have stories like that, you already know, okay, you're different. You feel othered. I mean, from a very young age, I felt very much like I did not belong. The first book I actually felt like I saw myself in the pages of a book was the Joy Luck Club, and I was in college. So I did not see it like that when I was younger. And I will tell you that that was the most impactful thing that ever happened to me. I felt for the first time like I was actually part of this country. Like I had felt like I didn't belong for so long. I mean, when all you hear all the time is, why don't you go back to your own country? Or, you don't belong here, get out of here. And all of these really horrible negative things. And you don't see yourself in books and TV and media, you really feel like unwanted. And when I read Joy Luck Club, it was the first time it was an immigrant experience like mine. And it didn't matter that they were Chinese and I'm Korean. It was still that idea of family and being an immigrant family and feeling like our story was finally being told, that people were reading and understanding that this was what it was like to be Asian American. And you don't know what you don't know if you've never seen it before, right?
So
Well, I did not know how much I needed that book until I read it.
it sends goosebumps. And I can tell you, I was in my late 30s or maybe even into my 40s before I read a book with a lesbian in. And I could have cried too, and like you guys, just thinking, how would that have been different if I'd seen that at age 5 or 10 or 15, but I just, so yeah, I heart what you guys are saying. I really do.
Well, I was going to say too, to connect with what Ellen said, that's such a good point, about many of us, not even seeing ourselves in literature till we're, teens or, adults. I mentioned seeing Roll Up Under Here My Cry in 3rd grade, but I didn't mention that the second book I saw with the Black girl on the cover was when I was an adult working for Ebony magazine. Wow. So on the cover of a picture book called Something Beautiful, in terms of, representation in children's literature. And that was a book that did inspire me to write for kids. I felt really called to help to make sure all kids could see themselves, know that they were loved. And their stories mattered. So I really connect with what Ellen was saying, and that the weight of invisibility, the pain of it and the heaviness of it is something that kids don't know how to articulate, but something that they feel. If you're in a class and you're, a book that has kids like you, it looks like your family or your heritage is never on the summer reading list or never one of the books, that you're supposed to be analyzing, with your peers in class. What does that do to someone's self-esteem and their psyche? Yeah. So I think that's, really important. Representation creates change, empathy. It helps build confidence and pride.
And that's so important, Kelly, because I think that we forget little kids, they might not have the language,
right?
Hey, what it is that they're feeling and that feels bad and it feels bad. They don't have that language, but they sure as heck are feeling it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Just slightly to change the track here. If we have any, and I'm sure we will have young people of colour watching, or people in our lives, who we want to encourage, maybe as educators, and want to become writers or illustrators, or maybe go into publishing, what concrete things are available to support these young people, whether they're elementary or teens or young adults? Yes, but either to both of you. So Ellen first.
So you're asking what's available or what they should do?
Both. What would you encourage if you had somebody in front of you now saying, I really want to become a writer? What should I do? Can you point me in the right direction? Are there any organizations I can join?
So, I mean, for me, I think if you want to be a writer, you have to just read a lot of books, right? I mean, that's just the simplest.
Yes.
Separately, what I would hope for is that they have a strong and healthy network of people that they can talk to, mentors. One of the things that WNDB does is we work with Penguin Random House on creative writing competitions for high school students, because we believe that, you want to nurture and mentor kids young to get that writing bug, because writing is a wonderful skill for everyone to have. But in general, like going back to anybody, it doesn't matter, race or gender or anything, if they want to be a good writer, they have to read a lot of books. Mm-hmm. And I hope that if they have a story burning inside of them, I really encourage them to tell it. Mm-hmm. Because I think the one thing that we, especially people of color, are told is nobody's interested in your story, or it won't sell. And I think that is such an untruth and so terrible to say to young people. I think any story is worth being told, is worth being shared. And if that story is burning inside of you, don't let anybody tell you can't write it. Write it. So that's my advice. Kelly.
Yeah. And start now, right? Kelly.
Yeah, I agree with Ellen. I think that the fundamentals of writing is being a strong reader, and reading in a couple different ways. So you read for the joy of the story, to be swept away somewhere new, to feel like you're walking in the character's shoes and looking through their eyes. But then as a writer, you're really taking it apart and figuring out how the creator made it work. How did that character really stand out to you? How did the voice, make you feel like you were part of the world? How did the person create the settings so it felt real, like you were there, with the characters in the story? So it's really deconstructing it and taking lessons from what we call mentor texts. So, really doing lots of reading, lots of thinking about what you're reading. I think also, I remember when I was younger and I was a big writer, I had a diary. Nowadays kids have journals. So just, writing, writing, it doesn't have to be a story. It can be just your thoughts about the day or some observations. It can be a rap. It can be, visual storytelling. It could be a cartoon, whatever it is. But just, getting your thoughts out on paper. And when I go to schools, I often talk about three main things I think that are necessary to be a writer. The first one is working hard, which is true of really anything you want to do. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of practice. It's going to take some resilience too. This is a field where you're going to be told no. Like Ellen said, you might worry that your story doesn't matter or that it doesn't have a chance of being published, but you have to keep on working hard and know that that'll happen. You also have to be creative and have imagination. And there's not one single path to any goal. So be able to work around obstacles, be able to look at stories in new ways, open your mind to reaching deep inside and finding that story that you're meant to tell. And the last thing that I think is actually most important is you have to have faith. You have to really believe that your story is going to find a home. We get lots of no's, but it only takes one yes. You get the one yes, and that story becomes the book on the shelf. And you have to draw from inside yourself. Think about, your teachers that are pouring into your family, your friends. And that's where you get that drive to keep on going, because you know that it's going to happen. No matter what anybody says, you quiet the doubts and you keep on writing and you keep on believing. So I think those three things: hard work, creativity, and faith.
Oh, yeah, I want to add
to that. I remember, and I'm going to forget who the author was, but there is a published author who said, and I think she was an award-winning author. She said that when she came out of her MFA program, she felt that there was tons of better writers than her, but when she came out, she was the only one that ended up published. Mm-hmm. And the difference was she kept writing, right? She kept writing. People give up. But if you keep writing, if you keep believing in your story, and maybe not that story, because, like I think Kelly and I both know lots of stories we might have had that we had to kind of put away.
Yeah.
It's working, right? But if you believe in your voice and your writing, and you believe enough to keep trying, you will get published.
Yeah. The other thing too, which makes me think, as Ellen was talking, it can be really empowering to read stories of authors, of their journeys, because sometimes you see the stickers on the books and you see the, people's names in the newspaper, and it looks glamorous, like it's something that was like a magic wand and you were an author. But then when you read about the years of rejections and the, really trying and not connecting, or maybe you got a deal and then it was years till your next one, that really helps you understand that you're not by yourself, that you're part of this community that is all working and caring and striving together. And so I think, writing can be really solitary, and it can be, for some people, feel really lonely and isolating. But when you draw on the community of experience, of stories, then you realize you're not by yourself, and there is power in that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's really inspirational. I hope some of our viewers are going to go away from this talk and the rest of the festival really inspired. Thank you so much for the great conversation today with Ellen and Kelly. And you've been watching the Bay Area Book Festival. Go to the schedule of the events page to see all the great conversations in our festival. And if you haven't already, you can still buy Ellen and Kelly's books through Green Apple Books. So thank you, Green Apple. And please stay on for the next session with Misa Sugiura and the awesome young writers of the festival's writing program for girls of color. Have a great day, everyone, and thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.